Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Real Madrid blow a great opportunity to remain in the La Liga title race as they lose to Girona 2-1. How did they do it? What did Girona do right? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're briefly going to break down how Girona beat Real Madrid. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Today's video, we're going to break down the first half, see how both sides like to approach the game, and why Real Madrid had such an easy time going into halftime. Then into the second half, see what changes Girona made and how they were able to pull off the upset. But first, let's get to the starting lineups. We look at Real Madrid, more of a 4-3-3. Asensio, Benzema, and Lucas Vazquez up front. In midfield, Casemiro, Dani Ceballos, and they went with Toni Kroos. Then we look to Girona, more of a 4-1-4-1. Stuani up front with Porto and Portu out in the wider areas. And in midfield, they went with Pons, Granell ahead of Douglas Luiz. So now let's get to the first half, see how both sides look to approach the game, and why Real Madrid, or how Real Madrid, were able to get some of the better chances. When we look at the first half and try to assess how both sides look to approach the game, one of the key factors here was that Girona did play in a 4-1-4-1, so they did match up with Real Madrid in midfield. One of the interesting things here was that they didn't necessarily man mark across the pitch, and Real Madrid were able to have ease in that midfield zone. We saw Toni Kroos often dropping off into the left side of the pitch to get on the ball, to get space for himself. No one really looking to close him down in those positions. He had time on the ball. Casemiro did a good job pushing forward, evading challenges as well. Ceballos was tidy in possession. That's how they were kind of going about things. We had Marcos Asensio, who often had the freedom to vary his movement. We'd have Marcelo tucking in a bit narrow so he could hold the width. He was often, if Marcelo held the width and pushed out to the touchline, we had Asensio tucking in centrally or making forward runs in behind the defense. That's how he was looking to operate. Lucas Vazquez did tuck in narrow, and Odriozola was pushing forward, and he often had an impact in that first half and somewhat into the second half, and we'll get to that in a bit. But Real Madrid did have the bulk of the play, even though Benzema wasn't really at his best. When they looked to press from the front, it was very similar. You had Benzema stepping to one center back. You ended up having the spare shuttler, whether it be Ceballos or Toni Kroos, stepping to the other center back, and the wider players pushing out in Asensio and Vazquez to hold out on the fullbacks. They dropped off to a 4-5-1 when required, but besides that, that's kind of how they were going about things. They had a goal threat in Asensio, and the way that they did create chances, we'll get to that in a bit, but that was kind of how they were going about things. Whereas for Girona, you didn't really know what to expect because the midfield, Douglas Luiz had time on the ball. Kroos and Ceballos took their time to step to him. He was actually involved in some of their best chances in the first half. He was playing reliable passes out to the wider areas, and he was trying to break up play. Whereas in the midfield, they weren't getting much from Granell or Pons. Granell was looking to push forward and advance his positioning to get the ball between the lines. And the wide area, Porto wasn't offering much as well. Their main threat came through Portu, just based off the fact that Stuani, as great as he is with his back to goal, he was left 2v1 against Ramos and Varane, and he wasn't offering much from open play. When we look to some of Girona's better chances, the first one that comes to mind is when Douglas Luiz shifts the ball out to Porto in a deeper position. Lucas Vazquez is next to him, and Granell pushes up to Odriozola. So when he plays the ball into Granell, what happens there is that Porto continues his run beyond Vazquez and runs around Odriozola, and what happens here is that Granell plays the reverse ball into that space where he's able to drive to the byline and pull it back for Stuani breaking in, but Varane tracked it well enough that his first touch wasn't good and it went out for a corner kick. Another opportunity where we do see Douglas Luiz kind of have an impact was in transition, where he's able to clip the ball out to Porto, who is now running 2v2 with Varane and with Stuani near Marcelo, who is recovering, and he slides the ball just in behind Marcelo for Stuani, but he ends up firing his shot from outside the box at Courtois, who does push it away. And one of the final opportunities that they did have towards the end of the half did stem from Douglas Luiz clipping a diagonal ball out to Pons and Porto, and he plays it to Pons, who lays it off for Grinnell. But again, that was kind of how they were going about things. They didn't really have much verve in their attack in the first half, and that was a big issue because even without the ball and they dropped off into their shape, they weren't really. They did do a good job in the sense that they didn't really concede many quality chances in terms of Real Madrid breaking them down from open play, but it wasn't good enough. They tried to press, they weren't getting tight enough, and they didn't have enough direct options, enough goal-scoring threats. So when we get to Real Madrid and think about their opportunities, a lot of it did stem down the left-hand side through Asensio. They did pounce on mistakes as well. But when you think about Girona, like I said, they dropped off into more of their shape and were worried about compressing space between the lines. They weren't really stepping into Madrid. Douglas Luiz was more so worried about Benzema dropping off a bit deeper and Ceballos pushing forward. So when we think about some of their early opportunities, it's just Cruz flicking the ball over Pons, sliding it to Lucas Vazquez, who's able to flick it over Alcana, and he breaks 1v1 with Bono, but Bono denies him from point-blank range. That's just poor defending from Girona, but again, it's Madrid trying to get their star quality to push them over the hump, and it almost did there. Another opportunity sees Casemiro slide the ball out to Toni Kroos, and he slides it to Asensio, who pulls out Romaglio, and what happens there is that we see Ceballos push into that left half space. Pons tracks him, and what happens? He plays it to him, and he gets it back in that space, but he delivers the cross through the box, and no one's there to attack it. But again, it's about Asensio finding space in that area and making the difference. Shortly after that, he gets another ball in that left channel, and he's able to cut in on Romaglio and then cut in on Douglas Luiz, but he fires a tame effort on goal. Madrid's opener didn't really stem from one of the sources that they would expect it to come from, but Casemiro has been lighting it up lately, and what happens is a corner kick that is cleared, but Cruz gets it back, and it's just simply Casemiro stepping in between Juanpe and Alcana to nod his effort superbly past Bono. But as we get to more Madrid chances, one of the ones that really sums things up here, after we see Lucas Vazquez pick up the ball, and he's able to slide it between Portu and Grinnell for Asensio, tucking into that narrow position. He plays it into him and then gets it back between those two players before he tries to run past Juanpe, and he can't get by him, but he pokes it to Odriozola, and that cross through the box just misses Karim Benzema, and that should put Madrid up 2-0. So when you think about that, you have to question how Madrid aren't ahead going into halftime by more than one goal. One more opportunity, we do see Odriozola press Raul Garcia and force him to lose the ball for Benzema to break forward on goal, and he forced Bono into a save. But when you look at the Madrid chances and you look at what Girona were trying to do, Girona not offering much of an attacking threat, sitting off understandably, not pressing as much, but trying to compress space between the lines. But they didn't have any answers for Asensio going 1v1, and we're very fortunate that no one was attacking the box when they got the ball into wider areas to deliver crosses into that 6-yard box. But when you think about it, you expected more from Real Madrid, but going into the second half, we wanted to see how Girona would try to change the game, and they really did do that. So now let's look at the second half, see what changes they made, and why Real Madrid couldn't get the job done. So when we look at the second half, we saw Girona make two changes initially, bringing on Alex Garcia to offer more of an attacking threat in the final third and to provide support for Stuani, and they brought on Lozano, which pushed Portu to the right-hand side. Now they had two direct players that were able to run at goal and offer some support in terms of creativity from the wider areas to Stuani as well, and that would balance out their attack. They also did press much better going forward. They had Stuani step out to one of the center backs, and then they encouraged Grinnell and Alex Garcia to push forward, to step to Casemiro and the spare center back, whoever that may be. And then that would leave Lozano and Portu to push out to the fullbacks to ensure that Real Madrid couldn't play out of the back from goal kicks or from open play, and that really helped them out in terms of closing down and adding a bit more intensity to their game to fluster the Real Madrid backline and midfield, because in the first half they were too pedestrian and they were allowing them to play passes and take control of the game. With that being said, however, we did see some good things from Real Madrid in the opening 10 minutes where they were drawing players towards the ball and then having runners play in behind them, and it should have led to a goal or at least forced Bono into more quality saves. We look to one opportunity where it is Odriozola looking and locating Lucas Vazquez from a narrow position, pulling out Romaglio, and what happens there is that he drops it off to Dani Ceballos, who then locates Odriozola, making the run off Lozano to get the ball in the right channel. And what happens there is that he does track him, and Lozano eventually fouls him to earn a booking. Shortly after that, we see a clearance from Casemiro, and this time it's Benzema pulling out Juanpe and dropping it off to Toni Kroos, who slides the ball out to Asensio, and Asensio now runs at Raul Garcia, and when he runs at Romaglio, and what happens there is that when he runs at him, he cuts out wide, and when he cuts out wide, he locates Benzema, making the run, peeling towards the far post of Juanpe, and he nods his effort into the side netting. Benzema should do better from there or look for a nod back to a teammate. However, it just goes to show, pull in, play it to a midfielder, slide it out wide, break forward with direct play. We look to one more opportunity as well, where again, it's just Ceballos sliding the ball wide out to the wider area. And when he slides it out to Odriozola running off Lozano, we see Romaglio step forward, but we see Lucas Vazquez making the run in behind him from a narrow position. And he runs into that zone, and when he gets the ball into that area, unfortunately, he's only able to guide his effort into Bono's hands. It was a tame cross, but you're seeing in the opening 10 minutes, Real Madrid really getting it together in those wider areas. However, they bring on Vinicius and push him out to the left and push Asensio out to the right. And when you think that, okay, Real Madrid have more of attacking verve in those wider areas, we suddenly saw a change as the midfield starts to collapse. So when we look to Girona's best opportunities in the second half, the first one does stem from a poor Casemiro pass into the attack, and we see Alcala intercepted into the path of Toni Kroos, but as he goes to try and play the pass in, Grinnell intercepts it as it was going to Ceballos, and Alex Garcia drops it off to Douglas Luiz, who does find Stuani in behind Casemiro to the right. When he finds him there, we do see the slide tackle from Casemiro, but that falls into the path of Garcia, who slides the ball out to Portu, and he has space because he's not closed down by Marcelo to clip a ball to the far post for Lozano, who gets ahead of Odriozola to nod his effort on goal that is pushed away, but it falls into the path of Alex Garcia from point blank range, and somehow he skies his effort over the net from 6 yards out. A great opportunity stems from Real Madrid's poor passing, and unlike the first half, they were ready to attack on the go, and that's why Alex Garcia and Lozano offered something different. When we get to the build-up to the penalty, something similar does arise. This time it's Kroos trying to step into Douglas Luiz to offer a press, and when he steps into him, Douglas Luiz is able to brush by him, and with Casemiro stepping to him, he plays the pass to Alex Garcia, who has Ramos now stepping to him, and he gets it back, and he plays the pass to Stuani, moving to the right of Varane. And as he gets the ball, we see Marcelo tuck in, and he's able to turn and again slide the ball out wide. And when he slides the ball out wide, this time the cross going in, we see once again the ball, we see our marker tower over Odriozola to nod his effort on goal, and it is Stuani who was able to do that, and he nods it on goal, and it hits the post, and it ends up falling to Douglas Luiz, who fires his shot on goal, and it hits Ramos's hand, and then they get awarded the penalty that we see Stuani convert. Through all that, we eventually see Gareth Bale come on for Asensio, move to the right-hand side, and then we see Mariano move on, and we see Real Madrid move to more of a 4-4-2 or 4-2-4, and it was a bit odd because the game was tied. They were struggling in midfield as it was, and now they were pushing more men forward when they were drawn, and they were taking a big gamble here. And shortly after that, we continue to see Girona attack down that side with pace and bypassing the midfield. We see Juanpe slide the ball out to Portu, and as he slides out to Portu, Marcelo steps to him, but we see Alex Garcia run off Toni Kroos to get the ball ahead of Ramos. So when the ball is played to Alex Garcia there, we see Portu run off Marcelo. Casemiro tracks it well, but As he takes the first touch, he fires his effort off the post and out. Real Madrid get lucky again, but their luck was eventually about to run out. We see Varane, who's getting pressed by Granell, slide the ball out to Odriozola. Odriozola is pressed by Lozano, and his first touch is poor, and we see Douglas Luiz and Casemiro go into a 50-50 challenge, and when they do that, Douglas Luiz comes out victorious, and he slides the ball because we have Odriozola already high into the path of Lozano, who continue to break forward. Varane tries to get across, obviously, but Lozano fires a shot on goal that Courtois pushes into the path of Portu, who gets ahead of Marcelo to nod his effort past the Belgian keeper. What we end up seeing after that is obviously they drop off deeper into more of their base 4-1 shape, and we see a bit of Vinicius magic throughout, but that wasn't good enough. We saw him move out to the left-hand side, drift past Portu, cut in past Romaglio and Juanpe to bend an effort wide of the net. We saw Varane clip the ball again. They rely on wide areas over Lozano for Odriozola, who's able to push by him and clip the ball back for Benzema breaking into the box, and it falls to Vinicius again, but he curls his effort inches wide of the net. When you break down the game as a whole, Girona deserves a lot of credit here for bringing on direct attacking players to provide service for Stuani and to ensure that Real Madrid's midfield did have some issues to deal with, because the first half was too relaxed for them and they were finally stepping into challenges. And as they were able to break in transition with direct play, Real Madrid had no answers for them despite a good opening start to the half where they're able to break down the wider areas. And when they changed the game, they were able to push ahead, and Real Madrid were fortunate not to be down more. So let me know what you guys think. Is the title race over for Real Madrid? Will they have to settle for a top 4 spot? And what about Girona? Struggling throughout the season, do they have enough to ensure that they don't get relegated? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.